Every idea starts out bad. And the key to any good design is iteration. What's nice about designing in Medium is that you're actually feeling it out already. You're not just designing an app, you're designing a place where your users are going to go. Hi everyone, I'm Michael. I work on a tool called ShapesXR. I've been working in the industry as a designer for about 8 years now, and I've been at Shapes for about 3. For any of you who are unfamiliar with what ShapesXR is, it's kind of a AR, VR, 3D design tool. And the idea of the tool, beauty of it is that it kind of explains itself. It's a tool that you use to come up, to explain your 3D ideas, to design virtual reality interfaces, to create prototypes. What I'm going to do in this lecture today is primarily I'm going to cast from my headset and just show you what it looks like to create in Shapes, talk about different flows that I've used, show some different prototypes, talk about how we use Shapes at Shapes because we design Shapes in Shapes, and just go through, I think, some of the relevant features for you guys in your hackathon. So without further ado, I'm going to put on my headset. So right now I am in a blank space. When you first load into a new space, you have your menu. This is what you will use to create, to edit. Think of this as like your toolbar. What I have here is I've loaded into the shape tool. So if I press the trigger, I can start creating a rectangle. So for example, I might create a panel, and then I can grab the panel with the grip with the middle finger. So now it's in my hand. I can move it around, right? And what's nice about designing in the Medium is that you're actually feeling it out already, right? Like I can make this panel bigger, smaller. Like when you're designing XR experiences, a feeling is really important, right? Like you're not just designing an app, you're designing a place where your users are going to go. So the way your application feels, the size of UI elements, the distance away, even the lighting, right? Is it darker? Is it lighter? Are we facing the sun? And we'll keep going through all that, right? But first off, really simple. You can draw, create a plate. So grab it. Then we have this functionality on the trigger, which allows me to create rapid duplicates. So now I'm creating a bit of letting my plane hang out. I can change the kind of shapes I make. I can draw in circles. I can throw things away just by grabbing them and tossing them. So these are just the basics of shapes. I can change the color of what I'm creating. I really like this inverted sphere. I think it's a really nice thing to use for almost like a 3D, 2D effect, because you can take 3D objects. And what I'll do is I'll build my asset library where we have a bunch of pre-built assets, as well as my own files. And these are GLBs that I've uploaded. So for example, I've uploaded a model of a space shuttle. So I can grab that, pull it in, put it inside of my little inverted sphere. And what an inverted sphere is, if anyone's unfamiliar, it's this shape that's kind of like if you're inside of it, what's known as the normals are inverted. So when you're inside of the sphere, you see the walls, but when you're outside of it, you don't. So it's really nice for creating these sort of like, you can see that it's like clearly a 3D object, but it kind of has the same like viewability of a 2D object because you can view it from any angle. This is my selection tool. So I've switched into it now that I've used an object. And I can move my joystick left and right. And this will allow me to grab objects from a distance. When I grab it, I can push it forward, backwards, left and right, scales it up and down on the thumbstick here, if you can see that. Then you can make it bigger, select a bunch of objects. So when I've selected a bunch of objects, they move together as well. And then I have my snapping button. So this makes everything align to 45-degree increments. It's really useful for setting up really precise things. So I'll take this. And I like to usually work in this like kind of small sphere, then switch between sort of, the big one, small one, big one, small one. If I want something from a distance, then I select this object, and I can press this button here, and that will bring up my gizmo. So now you can see I'm able to manipulate these objects in a nice way. So I'm going to maybe create a little road here, bring it into this way, and I can hold down this trigger, and I can pull out a duplicate, or I can stamp. So there's multiple ways to create duplicates. So now I created a few UI elements. And when I've selected them all together, I can group them. So now what I've done is I've created a group. So we'll say this is going to be my little, I'm going to group this together. There's undo, redo buttons here. So I'm going to group this together, and I'm going to actually throw these out. So I'm going to grab them, I don't toss them away. So now we got this little thing here. By the way, this is a really important concept in shapes. This is what's known as a viewpoint. And the way the viewpoint works is when I press the play button, which is on my joystick here, I snap to this position, right? So this is going to be where my user sees my prototype from. So I hit play, and I see it there. What the viewpoint also allows me to do, it allows me to pin, it allows me to attach elements to my hand. So in the example today, I want to make part of my UI actually be attached to the hand. So I'm going to grab this guy here. I think it's a nice size. I'm going to make it a little smaller. Let's see, scale, you can change it. So what I have here is when I select an object, it brings up my inspector for that object, and I can adjust so I can make it half the scale it normally was, for example. So there we go. And through the inspector, I can also choose to attach it to my left hand. So going back to that, I accidentally selected the viewpoint, and I'll attach it to the left hand like that. So now when I press play, you can see I now have a menu attached to my left hand, which is great. So what I'm going to do now, let's make this a little bit bigger actually. So yeah, there we go. Move it over a little bit. What I'm doing right now is I'm just pressing play, testing where the position is, immediately getting a sense of like how the sizing of this feels. Right? So this is the beauty of shapes, is that you're ideating and prototyping on your own body while you're in VR, right? You're not like sitting, making something in Blender, putting it in Unity, pushing it out, right? You're like really quickly going through concepts. Because like a lot of your ideas aren't going to be good, right? Like every idea starts out bad. And the key, I think, to any good design is iteration. The key is to iterate. And that's what you want to do in shapes, is kind of figure out your idea. So we'll take this guy, and maybe we'll like use it as like a little 3D icon here. Like maybe I'll get rid of a couple of these. So take these out. Maybe I'll extend. I think what I'll do is I'll use one of these, take a copy, and we'll use you as like a little back plate. So we'll do that. Nope, don't want that guy. Yeah. All right, there we go. It's annoying. See, the nice thing about making your own tool is you get to be annoyed by the things you make. All right, so we'll take this guy. We're going to change its color, which I can do via the material tab here. So we'll go with this. I don't think we need all of these guys. I think this one could go down here. This one can just get rid of that one. And then what I'll do is I will bring this to here, call it one object. That, put down a little bit. There we go, make it a little smaller. And then I'm going to group them all together. So first I'm going to get rid of the property here. There we go. Still got, you can actually tell that I have an object inside. There we go. Let's get rid of this guy. So what I'm doing to get into the group is I'm just clicking the trigger. So if I click on different objects in the group, I'll be able to I can basically traverse the group. Right, so I can select an object individually, or I can select the whole thing. So I'm going to take this group of objects here, and we're going to group them together, attach them to my left hand, and bam. So now I have a little UI. So that's fun. Let's now use the scene system. So right now I'm on scene 1, and what I can do is I can duplicate my scene. You can also do this through the little scene menu here, which is nice. So 1, 2, and what I want to do is on 1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this and take this and make it smaller. I'm going to take you, make it smaller. Nope. Be a little precise sometimes. So now, perfect. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a hover interaction. So I select my group, I go to interactions, I add interaction, I go on hover, go to scene 2, hover enter, bam. And then let's say I want to do on hover exit, we'll go back to scene 1. So now, got this little interaction. And I can change my prototyping settings where I can turn this hover effect off. So now I've created a UI that floats on my hand. And maybe at first I want it to be even smaller. So what I'll do is I will duplicate my scene. I'll go back to 1 and I'll move it down actually. So like when I'm here, I'll make it smaller, like that. Cool. And what I'm going to do now is on scene 1, I want there to be a delay. And what I'll do is I will go to my interactions and we'll add a after delay. We'll go to scene 2 and we'll do it after 0.2 seconds or 0.5 seconds. So let's get rid of this interaction. For enter, go to scene 3. And we're going to change this link to scene 2. And so when I go to scene 1, it'll automatically pop up. And this is like a nice way you can actually create little stop motion animations. So for example, I can be on scene 1, let me duplicate this guy again. And on scene 2, still navigate to 3, make this even. Make it even. Let's make it like, let's move it to like the side. Yeah, so then we'll go 1. Then we'll make it so it navigates to scene 2. Scene 3, bum, bum. So right now, so what I'll do is when I press play, little animation, and now I have this hoverable UI element for whatever it is that I want to do with it. So this is really the basics of how you can create prototypes and shapes, right? Scenes, triggers, attachment to body, attachment to hand, right? This is kind of the process.
Hello, you are watching a free video on our Examento series here on YouTube. We have 12 videos planned for this. We will upload them on a weekly basis, so 12 weeks. If you want to access all of them immediately and for free, then feel free to check out our Immersive Insiders platform. We have it linked above and in the description. You can also access to our community and all of that stuff. So there's a bunch of cool things going on. Feel free to check it out and enjoy the video.
I'm going to go through a few more features of shapes I think that are important for everyone to know. Right? Like these are like how you put the blocks together, but I want to make sure everyone, all the different building blocks. So in my assets, I have these things called procedural primitives, which I've been using. And these have properties like bend. So I can bend them in different directions. I can change their corners, take the chamfer on and off. Just important to know these are really useful for making shapes. And then I can even change the thickness. Make it really thin. Here I have on this hand, on my dominant hand, I have this button here, and this brings up my tool switcher, which is really useful for switching between my tools really quickly. So for example, we have a draw tool. This is really nice where I could maybe sketch out certain UI elements. I can make a little, it's my tube brush. I can even do a little bit of 3D modeling. So I can kind of create these meshes. And this is another really useful for rapid prototyping. And remember, any tool I can always just grab with the grip button. So I can grab like that. And then I can easily switch back to my select tool, put it all together, group it, duplicate it. Right? See how quickly I've come up with a concept? Another thing that I can do is we have this button here, turns mixed reality on and off. Hey everyone, this is nice because I can move stuff around. I can place stuff in my room, put it in the window. Maybe I'll put this outside. Maybe I can see my bus stop over there. I can put it above my bus stop. There we go. It's nice over there. Oof, I think Windows mess with the Quest tracking sometimes. But yeah, mixed reality is great because I think augmented reality is just super duper fun, and you can turn that on and off with this button. So yeah, shapes, rapid prototyping, rapid ideation. It's also a collaborative tool. We won't be demonstrating that today because I'm by myself. But if you click on this button, you have a link and a code, and your teammates can actually join you, and you can collaborate in real time. If your teammates aren't with you, you also have the option to leave them a comment. So this is actually a really cool feature. We call this a hollow note. And what I'll do is I have my camera. We'll move it around, and we'll say I want my user to be here. And I'm going to be here. And then just press start recording. And what I'm going to do here is I'm recording my voice. I'm pointing at stuff. I'm moving around. I'm saying, this maybe should be a little bigger. It could be like the primary element in my UI. This might be the secondary. This might be the third. And then I stop. And now that I have this note, when my teammate comes in and I press play, they see me. We call this a holographic note. It's kind of like Princess Leia from Star Wars. Obi-Wan, you're my only leaving like a note for someone. Nice. Yeah, you can tell who left the note, what the note's about, and they'll all be here. Teleport into the note, press play. Everything's available through the menu. Here is my edit options. Cool. Let's see. These are my prototyping. So we've gone through scenes, right? These are the scenes. We have my viewpoint, which I can teleport into. Also, when I press play. So that's our scenes, viewpoints in this menu, assets, prototyping, our various share options. You can also export to Unity. This is really important or really useful. If you're working with Unity, you just give the same code that you use to share, and you can import it using our plugin. Or you can export out geometry. So you can give it to your developer, so your developer has a reference of, the exact scale that you want your UI to be at. And you might not use it to make your final UI elements, but it's really useful for having as a reference point, right? So if you're gray boxing a level or you're prototyping some sort of complex UI, scale and distance are really important factors in VR, right? So relative to where my viewpoint is, which is going to be over here, this guy. Yeah. There we go. I'm going to exit out. Let's see. We have a sun. So you can change the lighting of the space. You can make it nighttime. You can make it daytime. Lighting is important because maybe you want stuff to catch shadow. But I don't, when I'm gray boxing or prototyping, this isn't really what I focus on for the most part. Different settings. So yeah, that was an overview of kind of what shapes can be used for. I can show you now I'm going to show you some examples of what it looks like when you put it all together. So for example, this is a space with a rocket in it. The idea was what does a rocket explosion look like? So this is a space. So what we've done here is we have a giant orb. So this is an inverted sphere, like the one I was talking about earlier. And we're using it as an environment. And then we have a button over here, some interaction. So after 1 second delay, we'll go to 2, start to count down, right? These are all just delay triggers. And then I can actually use my hands for this one. So if I put my controllers down, it should switch to hand tracking. And I can see I think I have 7 controllers. You got to make sure that in the prototyping mode, you actually turn on hands. So that's very important. So I'll put it over here, put my controllers down, move it actually up a little bit so I don't break my computer. All right, yep. So I hit the launch button, and then you can see there's a delay timer that's switching it off. Bam. Pick my controller back up, and let's go back. So I hit and it takes off, right? It's keep going. Let's see. I want to find something a bit more complex. So after this, I want to talk about how Figma prototype works. Figma prototypes work in shapes. This was a good one. Let's see. This is a good example of the interactivity system. So this is a space that uses 50 scenes. Take a second to load in. If you're getting any performance issues, you can always turn on performance mode. So in this case, this is actually a 3D scan of a real lake tunnel in Seattle. And then as you go through it, this is on a hover trigger. So really simple. You hit play, and that was a little animation done in shapes. So in this case, the designer actually used a hollow note as part of his prototype. We're going to X out of that. And then we have these on delay triggers basically playing through this little game. So if I shoot this guy, you get points. So this is all done in shapes, no code, right? You can kind of see the scene system here as it's switching through scenes. So it's almost like stop motion animations. Like a bomb. And then if this guy actually gets to me, it'll switch me to a scene where I've been killed. Or, see? Go back, takes me to the beginning. I'm really good at this game. I played it a lot. Cool. One thing I want to show off, I think is interesting, is specifically how Figma works. So we actually design shapes in Shapes, but we also use Figma for a lot of the 2D elements. Then we use Shapes to do the actual prototyping. And so what I'm going to have to show you is actually we've used our Figma integration to import and sync the Figma frames. The way it works is I'll import the frame from Figma. We have a plugin where I'll select my frames, and then I'll bring them into Shapes. And the cool thing is when I update them in Figma, they'll actually update in Shapes. What I have here, this right here is actually a Figma frame. So you can see I have this sync with Figma button. And what it'll do when I press sync is it'll actually update it. Then when I press play, I have a bunch of interactive triggers all over this prototype, which are not currently working, but might be an old space. But each of these scenes is its own individual Figma prototype. So we tried out a lot of different UI layouts. This is a really old version of the UI. You can tell we reduced the amount of tabs significantly. So I'm going to go show you how to do that on the desktop. So I'm going to take my headset off real quick. So I'll go to, say, Figma, where I have my individual assets. So for example, this is the state of our menu. And what I'll do is I will go on plugins, ShapesXR, logs in, should find this file because I've imported before. Give it a second. There we go. So now it knows that this group here, for example, so I haven't exported it. I can choose what folder I want to export to. So let's just export it into my files. I press export. So now it's going to start doing that process. And I can also, again, I can select a bunch of stuff, right? So if I select a bunch of objects, it'll select all three of them. And then if nothing's selected, it'll show me all the different things that I've selected. This here is my sync button. So if I sync it, it'll update. So I'll show you how that works. I'll go to my files, and there it is. There is my Figma frame. So cool thing here, actually, if you used fixed scale, you have this thing called the scale factor. So it'll actually come in at a very specific size. So for our UI, we usually use 0.5. So any element that I bring in, any other Figma elements, I think there was one other one in my files, it'll come in at the exact same proportion, which is excellent. So when you're importing UI from Figma, you're going to want to use this UI scale modifier here. And you get to it by just clicking on it. So you can change kind of like the factor. And what it's doing is it's basically multiplying the pixels by a factor to turn it into an actual physical size. And then you'll always have the same pixel to centimeter ratio for everything you import. So I'll bring this in. So I've made it a lot bigger. but I'll cheap it at 0.5. And you see it comes in with the correct size. Bam. Yeah, see? My text sizes are preserved, right? And then I can also snap this to the surface here. Bam. Toss these away. So that's one way to import Figma. The other thing we've added recently, and this is more of an alpha, I would consider it more of an alpha feature, is you can import entire prototypes. So for example, the way that works, if I go to shapes.app, I'll go to Figma here, and I might have like a prototype of I have this like Horizon OS. I was messing around with Meta's UI kit. So I click on share prototype, copy the link. And then as you guys can see, this is like a whole interactive prototype with scrolling, clicking, hover effects, right? Like I don't want to have to necessarily recreate all of that. I'll go to my files. I click on import, go to Figma prototype. I paste it in. Once it's pasted in, it comes in as a link. And then if I go back to Oculus, I have it right here and I can bring it in. There we go. So it's a bit hacky, right? You're not going to get all of the transparency. Although if you're making something for AR, you can set the material to additive. This is like, anything that's black will basically become transparent. So that's good for if you're doing something for like Magic Leap or you're conceptualizing something from Orion. But yeah, normally it'll just be if you just use a PBR material, you'll have it like this. So you can click on stuff. But as you can see, this hover effect works. A video plays. I can pause it. The material got a little messed up here. We'll investigate that later. But yeah, that is basically Shapes in a nutshell. Right? You have your prototyping features, you have your editing tools, you got your draw tool, text tool, paint stuff. I think I will now open up to questions.
I think initially when you were showing the sphere, there's a question if you can invert it.
No. We have we have an inverted cube primitive as well. So we have inverted cubes and inverted spheres, but you can't do it to any object yet. Good question. Eventually, that is in the cards.
Okay. And there was one place when you're showing how you can place the objects ahead of your window. So they wanted to know which button you were using to do that.
Forward, I was just pushing it out. So I was holding it. Okay. Hold and then push.
So is there ShapesXR for Vision Pro, like an app that you can download and use?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. Do you have any like top 5 spaces that you made in ShapesXR that they can check out?
The samples. I would go through the samples. Those are all pretty good.
Right. Do you have like any optimization tips for them? Like what happens if they import like high poly models and then it starts lagging and things like that?
So like our biggest limitation is just the Quest 3. So I would try to avoid high poly models for both your design, but also for your implementation, because if it's going to lag in shapes, it'll definitely lag on the real device. And then there's like a performance mode, which turns down the render scale. So if you are like having like a complex scene and you're getting some slowdown, that might be able to help, especially for textures. But it'll lower the quality of what you see a little bit.
All right. Yeah. I think, that's it, Mike. That's done with the questions. Thank you so much for joining. So people in the chat, we have a small feedback form for you. If you can take 2 minutes to fill it, it would be really great. And you'll find the recordings again on the Discord. We have linked it. You can check it out there. Thank you so much for your time, Michael. Have a nice day.
Thank you.